The causes of the Civil War in the United States are complex and multifaceted, stemming from decades of tensions and disagreements between the northern and southern states. One of the key issues that led to the outbreak of the war was the debate over slavery. By the mid-19th century, the southern states relied heavily on enslaved labor for their agricultural economy, while the northern states had largely abolished slavery. This fundamental difference in economic systems and moral beliefs created a deep divide between the regions. In 1860, the election of Abraham Lincoln, who opposed the expansion of slavery into new territories, further heightened tensions between the North and South. The southern states viewed Lincoln's election as a threat to their way of life and feared that he would abolish slavery altogether. This fear ultimately led to the secession of several southern states from the Union, culminating in the formation of the Confederate States of America. The secession of the southern states and the attack on Fort Sumter in April 1861 marked the beginning of the Civil War. The war was not only fought over the issue of slavery, but also over broader issues of states' rights, economic differences, and political power. The southern states believed in the concept of states' rights, arguing that individual states had the right to govern themselves and make their own laws without interference from the federal government. On the other hand, the northern states believed in a stronger federal government that could regulate and enforce laws across all states. These differing views on the balance of power between the states and the federal government further fueled the conflict. The Civil War was also influenced by economic factors, as the northern states were industrialized and relied on manufacturing and trade, while the southern states were agrarian and depended on slave labor for their plantations. The economic disparities between the regions exacerbated existing tensions and played a significant role in the outbreak of the war. In addition to slavery, states' rights, and economic differences, the issue of territorial expansion also contributed to the causes of the Civil War. The question of whether new states admitted to the Union would be free or slave states further divided the North and South. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 and the Dred Scott decision of 1857 intensified the debate over the expansion of slavery into the Western territories. These events highlighted the deep-rooted divisions within the country and set the stage for the conflict that would ultimately tear the nation apart. The Civil War in the USA was a tumultuous and bloody conflict that lasted from 1861 to 1865, resulting in over 600,000 casualties. The war was characterized by a series of key events and battles that shaped its course and outcome. One of the earliest and most significant events of the war was the Battle of Fort Sumter in April 1861, which marked the beginning of hostilities between the Union and Confederate forces. The Confederate bombardment of the fort forced its surrender, signaling the start of the war. As the war progressed, both sides engaged in a series of major battles that had a significant impact on the outcome of the conflict. One such battle was the Battle of Gettysburg, fought in July 1863 in Pennsylvania. It was the bloodiest battle of the war, with over 50,000 casualties, and is often considered a turning point in favor of the Union forces. Another key event in the course of the war was the Emancipation Proclamation, issued by President Abraham Lincoln in January 1863. The proclamation declared all enslaved people in Confederate-held territory to be free, changing the nature of the war and aligning it more closely with the abolition of slavery. The war also saw the implementation of new military strategies and technologies that revolutionized warfare. The Union's use of railroads for transportation and communication, as well as the Confederates' innovative use of trench warfare and guerrilla tactics, were instrumental in shaping the course of the conflict. The naval blockade imposed by the Union on Confederate ports also played a crucial role in weakening the Southern economy and military capabilities. The war came to a dramatic conclusion in April 1865 with the surrender of Confederate General Robert E. Lee to Union General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. The surrender effectively ended the fighting and signaled the reunification of the country. The Civil War left a lasting impact on the United States, with profound social, political, and economic consequences that reverberated for decades to come. The war not only led to the abolition of slavery, but also reshaped the balance of power between the federal government and the states. The Reconstruction era that followed sought to rebuild the nation and address the challenges of integrating newly freed African Americans into society. The legacy of the Civil War continues to influence American society and politics to this day, serving as a reminder of the cost of division and the importance of unity. The Civil War in the USA was marked by a series of major battles that shaped the course of the conflict and had significant impacts on both the Union and Confederate forces. One of the most famous battles of the war was the Battle of Gettysburg, fought from July 1st to July 3rd, 1863 in Pennsylvania. It was the largest battle ever fought in North America and resulted in over 50,000 casualties. The Union Army, led by General George Meade, successfully defended against General Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army, marking a turning point in the war. Another notable battle was the Battle of Antietam, fought on September 17, 1862, near Sharpsburg, Maryland. It remains the bloodiest single-day battle in American history, with over 22,000 casualties. The Union Army, commanded by General George McClellan, clashed with General Lee's Confederate Army in a brutal and indecisive battle. The Battle of Shiloh, fought on April 6 to 7, 1862, in Tennessee, was another significant engagement. It was one of the earliest battles of the war and resulted in over 23,000 casualties. The Union Army, under the leadership of Generals Ulysses S. Grant and William T. Sherman, emerged victorious against the Confederate forces. The Battle of Vicksburg, fought from May 18 to July 4, 1863, in Mississippi, was a pivotal moment in the war. The Union Army, led by General Grant, laid siege to the Confederate stronghold of Vicksburg, eventually capturing the city and gaining control of the Mississippi River. This victory split the Confederacy in two and cut off vital supply lines. The Battle of Chickamauga, fought on September 19 to 20, 1863 in Georgia, was one of the bloodiest battles of the war. It resulted in over 34,000 casualties and ended in a Confederate victory. The Union Army, commanded by General William Rosecrans, suffered a significant defeat at the hands of General Braxton Bragg's Confederate forces. The Battle of Atlanta, fought from July 22 to September 2, 1864 in Georgia, was a crucial victory for the Union Army. General Sherman's forces successfully captured the city of Atlanta, a major Confederate supply center and railroad hub. The victory boosted Northern morale and played a key role in President Lincoln's re-election. These major battles and strategies employed by both Union and Confederate forces were instrumental in shaping the outcome of the Civil War and determining the future of the United States. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, played a pivotal role during the Civil War, guiding the nation through its most tumultuous period. Lincoln's leadership and decision-making skills were instrumental in preserving the Union and ultimately abolishing slavery. Interestingly, Lincoln was the first Republican president in U.S. history, having been elected in 1860. He faced immense challenges during his presidency, including the secession of Southern states and the outbreak of the Civil War. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, delivered in 1863, is one of the most famous speeches in American history, emphasizing the principles of equality and democracy. During his presidency, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring all enslaved individuals in Confederate-held territory to be free. This bold move shifted the focus of the war towards the abolition of slavery and had far-reaching consequences. Lincoln's leadership style was characterized by his ability to listen to diverse viewpoints and make informed decisions. He often consulted with his cabinet members and military advisors before taking action. Lincoln's commitment to preserving the Union was unwavering, even in the face of intense opposition and criticism. Despite facing personal tragedies, including the loss of his son Willie during his presidency, Lincoln remained dedicated to his duties as president. Lincoln's re-election in 1864 was a testament to his popularity and the trust that the American people had in his leadership. Tragically, Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth in April 1865, just days after the Confederate surrender at Appomattox Courthouse. His untimely death shocked the nation and left a profound impact on American history. Lincoln's legacy as the great emancipator and his contributions to the abolition of slavery continue to be celebrated and remembered to this day. The Emancipation Proclamation, issued by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1, 1863, was a landmark executive order that declared all enslaved individuals in Confederate-held territory to be free. This proclamation did not immediately free all enslaved individuals, as it only applied to states in rebellion against the Union. However, it marked a significant shift in the war's focus towards the abolition of slavery. Interestingly, the Emancipation Proclamation did not apply to the border states that remained loyal to the Union, allowing slavery to continue in those regions. The proclamation was a strategic move by Lincoln to weaken the Confederacy's economy and military capabilities by depriving them of their labor force. It also served as a moral imperative, aligning the Union's cause with the fight against slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation paved the way for the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which formally abolished slavery nationwide. By the end of the Civil War, nearly 4 million enslaved individuals had been freed as a result of the proclamation. While the Emancipation Proclamation was a crucial step towards ending slavery, it did not immediately grant full citizenship rights to formerly enslaved individuals. It was not until the passage of the 14th and 15th Amendments that African Americans were granted equal protection under the law and the right to vote. The Emancipation Proclamation remains a symbol of freedom and equality in American history, highlighting the ongoing struggle for civil rights and social justice. The impact of the Civil War on slavery and African Americans was profound, reshaping the social and economic landscape of the United States. With the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, nearly 4 million enslaved individuals were freed from bondage in Confederate-held territories. This marked a significant turning point in the fight against slavery, although it did not immediately grant full citizenship rights to African Americans. The war also led to the passage of the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, formally abolishing slavery nationwide. Despite these advancements, the post-war period was marked by ongoing challenges and struggles for African Americans seeking equality and civil rights. The Freedmen's Bureau, established in 1865, provided assistance to newly freed individuals, offering education, healthcare, and employment opportunities. By 1870, the 15th Amendment was ratified, granting African American men the right to vote. However, the Reconstruction era was marred by violence and discrimination, as white supremacist groups sought to maintain control and suppress the rights of African Americans. The Ku Klux Klan, founded in 1865, terrorized African American communities through acts of violence and intimidation. By the end of Reconstruction in 1877, many gains made by African Americans were eroded, leading to the establishment of Jim Crow laws and institutionalized segregation. Despite these setbacks, African Americans continued to resist and fight for their rights, leading to the civil rights movement of the 20th century. Figures such as Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and Sojourner Truth emerged as prominent voices in the fight for freedom and equality. The legacy of the Civil War and its impact on slavery and African Americans continue to shape the ongoing struggle for racial justice and equality in the United States. The Reconstruction era in the United States, following the Civil War, was a period of significant social, political, and economic change. Interesting details and facts from this era include the establishment of the Freedmen's Bureau in 1865, which provided assistance to newly freed African Americans by offering education, health care, and employment opportunities. The Reconstruction Acts of 1867 divided the South into military districts and required states to ratify the 14th Amendment to be readmitted to the Union. By 1870, all former Confederate states had been readmitted. One interesting statistic is that during Reconstruction, over 1,500 African Americans held public office, including 2 U.S. senators and 14 congressmen. This was a remarkable achievement considering the systemic racism and discrimination prevalent at the time. The Reconstruction era also saw the ratification of the 15th Amendment in 1870, granting African American men the right to vote. Despite these advancements, the era was marred by violence and resistance from white supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan, leading to the enforcement of Jim Crow laws and the rise of segregation in the South. By the end of Reconstruction in 1877, many gains made by African Americans were rolled back, setting the stage for decades of racial inequality and injustice. The legacy of the Reconstruction era continues to shape discussions on civil rights and equality in the United States, highlighting the ongoing struggle for racial justice. The legacy of the Civil War is evident in the lasting impact it had on American society. Interesting details include the construction of national cemeteries to honor fallen soldiers, with over 40 established by the end of the war. The war also led to the development of the first federal income tax in 1861 to fund the Union war effort. Notably, the Civil War resulted in over 620,000 total casualties, making it the deadliest conflict in American history. The war's legacy is also reflected in the Reconstruction amendments to the Constitution, including the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery, the 14th Amendment granting equal protection under the law, and the 15th Amendment granting voting rights to African American men. These amendments laid the foundation for civil rights advancements in the years to come. The Civil War led to significant social and political consequences, including the establishment of national cemeteries to honor fallen soldiers. Over 40 national cemeteries were established by the end of the war. Additionally, the war resulted in the first federal income tax in 1861 to fund the Union war effort. With over 620,000 total casualties, the Civil War remains the deadliest conflict in American history. The Civil War had a profound economic impact, with the Union's industrialized economy outpacing the agrarian South. Interesting numbers include the Union's $3.3 billion war expenditure compared to the Confederacy's $1.9 billion. The war also led to the establishment of the national banking system and the issuance of the first national currency, transforming the country's financial infrastructure.